Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Burns. Next to me is Nikolai Svlatkin, who is the lead 3D engineer at Adobe. I am the president of the Photoshop user group. We are an official Adobe user group of 5,000 members right here in San Diego. I'm also the president of the Blender user group. We're about 1,000 members there. And welcome to our presentation, Unleash the Power of Blender 3D to Build Environments for Comics, on this Thursday, 4 to 5 p.m. presentation. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you, Comic-Con, for having us. This is going to be a real fun presentation. And what I'm going to talk to you is a little bit about, what we're doing, why environments are important, and some of the things we should be considering as we build environments. And if you feel we know anything about this subject, then what I'd like you to do is go to this QR code, scan it with your phone, sign up on the mailing list, and I'm going to send you more information about the workshops that I will be teaching in Blender 3D. So I teach quite a few workshops: Blender 3D Intro, an advanced class, and many others. So you're going to have a continued education for an inexpensive price in educating yourself and developing your skills to be a 3D artist. Okay. All right. Let's talk about what we're doing here. So I want to share this piece here. The design is by John Eves. He's the gentleman who designed the Enterprise from the Strange New Worlds, as well as the Enterprise E from the motion picture. He gave me some drawings and some, basically, digital drawings of his living module. And what I was supposed to do is kind of take that module to tell a story. That's why we have environments. Environments are there to put an object into a scene, or a character into the scene, to tell some type of a story. As interesting as this may look, it doesn't tell a story until I bring it into the scene with something in there that starts to give it a reflection of, okay, a story is about to happen. So what I've done is I've put in a background. So the background is called an HDRI image. And think of while you're working in a 3D program, there's a giant sphere wrapped around your entire 3D environment. And on that sphere is a photographic image. In this case, it's a sky and clouds. That all the color and the luminous details in this image is actually lighting this scene. And what that does is it helps actually make this module look like it belongs in this environment. That's kind of that step. So remember, we got our main character. Our main character is what we're going to focus on. We've got a background into kind of like to envelope the concept. Now we're going to start to add other various aspects. Actually, it starts to tell a story. We got the foreground full of the moss and the plants. We have the background with the mountain landscape in addition to our sky back there that we had put in originally. But what really glues this scene together? The glue to this whole concept is the atmospheric haze, all right? That really helps sell the piece. So let's take a look at something else. Added a little bit of lighting, all right, to really give it a feeling that it belongs in this environment. Is interacting with the shading, the atmosphere, and the specular highlights within the scene. Here's one I was hired to produce, for a client. It's basically a space station for a Constitution class style enterprise, and by itself it looks interesting, but then we want to bring in an environment, and there we go. So we got the background as if it's in space, and of course the lighting that represents the particular location, spatial location that this space station is going to be placed in, or has been placed in. Show you another example. We can see another example of the starship within the space station, which kind of helps tell a story. In other words, what is this space station? Why is this space station? Oh, the space station is in space, and it's there to service other starships in some capacity. All right, so let's look at another example. Now we got an interior here. All right, we have an interior, and it's love the detail, love the textures, but it doesn't really tell a story, right? Okay, so as we move forward, we see another version of the interior. We add the color, some of the lighting details. Okay, that helps to sell the scene a little bit. It's starting to say something. It's like it's some type of an environmental module in an inhospitable environment that preserves human beings, so human beings can continue to study and work. And now we add that glue. Remember that glue, the atmospheric haze right there. So that really helps sell the scene. Okay. Then we bring the character in there as well. The atmospheric haze does two things. Helps to glue the all the little visual details together, but it also numbs down the background so that your focus is on the character or the foreground objects. Here's another example of it within a space, just kind of showing the client a combination of the interior and the exterior HDRI lighting image that's wrapped around that giant sphere around your 3D scene. All right, here we go. Now we got planets here, something I did for a client, and it's the same concept. So the planets are the subject. We have the background, which is the nebulous gases all around the planet, and then we got that atmospheric glue that kind of glues the whole scene together. And if I go forward, we have another example. We have an Earth-like planet using the same concepts. We have a Jupiter planet, and again using that same concept of a background, your main subject with the background as well as that atmospheric haze. And then something of Mars, I believe is what this is. And same concept here. We've got a character in a foresty scene. And, this is basically a screenshot or basically a frame from an animation. And if I move forward, you can see the glue, right? The atmospheric haze, which creates some of these streaking lighting coming through. Adds a little more interest to the piece. Have another view of the character. And here's one of my favorites. So basically, this piece was created in Blender and then detailed in ZBrush. And we see the cloud background, the sky background. That's going to be our HDRI image, stands for high definition resolution image. So that we've got all that lighting and luminous details is lighting the entire scene. Got a little bit of a water down here in the bottom, and of course our character emanating from this stone structure. I call this piece Tied to the Abyss, but if I move forward, I want to give it a little more character, so I add the atmospheric haze to it, and now our focus is more on the character and less on the background and less on the reflections. As we move forward, there's the final piece with the actual character, okay, with the atmospheric haze, and which is working as the glue to kind of solidify all these little details into a conceptual scene. So if I get in a little closer, you can take a look at it up close. Little abstract character. We've got little firefly sparkly effects, which is part of the atmosphere, and of course the water down on the bottom here. Okay, so now let me share with you something that we're going to look at next. We're going to look at how I actually pull these things together, how I'm thinking, how they're organized. But let me first show you the actual video that I use for this particular piece. All right, so did a quick little video, short period of time right before the con. And again, I got a character. There's my character, front and center. I wanted to get this effect where movement in the background is separated from the movement in the foreground, and there's techniques that I use to get this particular style of effect. Got a little bit of the glowing snowflakes around them, and of course the atmosphere that's all the way around their character, including as part of the background. So this example I'm going to show you in Blender, but I'm going to show you, this is going to be kind of like the quick and easy, fast way of creating an environment. Okay. All right. So let's get inside of Blender and let's go play around. All right. So here we are. Here is the scene inside of Blender. Let's pull it back a little bit and take a look at it all. This is what you're actually seeing. They're simple little staged objects. Now, the background isn't a mountainous scene that I created in Blender, although I could have, and I'm going to show you an example of that after this. But this is an easy one where I actually took a panoramic photographic image and actually pasted onto a curved plane. It's just a curved plane. On that curved plane, after I took a panoramic, stitched it together in Photoshop, laid it on top. Then I decided to create the grassy or the ground area which the character is standing on, and I made it long enough so that as the camera is moving right to left, I can it's going to have some. It's always going to have some of that foreground showing or is evident in the scene. And then there is my character right here. Okay. Now I'm in scene view where I'm overlooking everything. So again, character or foreground or background, and then we haven't, and then the glue. If we kind of pull way back here, you see that light little rectangular box there? That's the atmospheric haze. That's the glue. All right, so it's creating this nice little atmosphere that's giving you a sense that the background is way in the distance. Now I'm not viewing this through the camera right now. There's my camera right there. We can see it. I'm going to select it. That's the camera right about here. Now if I hit the 0 key on the keyboard to go to camera view, there is my camera view right there. Let me kind of go back, and I'm going to go into Blender and tell it to move the frame independently. So we have to go under the Items tab on this vertical left side menu here, go to View, and then uncheck the camera view option, so that what I can do, I'm going to hit the N key for numerics. Actually makes this little panel go away. It allows me to zoom in with the frame without actually navigating through the camera. So if I get in a little close here and then play the animation, you get to see, of course, I'm connected to a digital projector, and what you're not really seeing it real time, right? You're seeing rendered segments per frame, but you're getting a good feel as to what's going on here. Okay. All right. So what I like to do next is share an example of how we would think if we actually had an actual landscape that was built inside of Blender. Okay, so let's take one last look at this snowy scene. I'm going to bring it on over. There we go. And there it is, right? And as you're looking through the camera view, it looks like everything is one solid, complete landscape, when everything is actually in terms of layers, like the foreground, the front, the background's way in the back, the snowy flakes. There's another element just overlaying the entire image, giving you that sense of depth. Okay. All right. So let's go see another example. I call this one the log cabin scene. Now we're viewing it through the camera right now. If I want to see the entire scene without viewing through the camera, I hit the 0 on the numeric side of my keyboard. I'm going to hit it now, and bring it back. Now let me pull this back. In fact, I'm going to take this over to the shading section here. Go grab that right about there. There we are. And let's go see this in material view. In fact, let's go back to the modeler and we will go back to solid view. So I'm going to pull this back and you're going to see what's happening here. There it is. That's my scene. Now let's move this little giant box out of the way. There's a reason why it's there. We'll address it in just a little bit. Let's move this box out of the way. Let's get down here, zoom in close, hitting the period key on the numeric side of the keyboard allows me to zoom into the selected object. There is my actual scene here, right? With two different mountainscapes here. One here, one in the back, which is the exact same thing as duplicated, but I kind of just resized it, stretched it, put it in the back here. In the foreground is my log cabin. So if I select it, hit the period key, there is my log cabin. Let's go into render view. Let's take a quick look at this. I'm going to take this, and I've got two versions of Blender open here, so I'm going to close up the other one and maximize that one. And let's go to render view here. Let's see what we get. Okay, now we get an actual render of our scene. Loving it. So there's my cabin, right? The foreground is going to be obviously my ground. And then I have my character here, right? So I brought in the character so that I can always know, everything will always be proportional to human height. So that when you import this into Unreal Engine, it's going to be accurate, right? The fast way of doing it, and you can see an example in the back where I brought it in from another tutorial, but I'll delete this one right now and show you how it's done. There's a little ring here that you see, it's called a 3D cursor. Whenever I want to bring anything into Blender, that is where it's always going to place it. So I made sure my 3D cursor was back here and underneath the roof, so I can kind of get an accurate assessment if this is going to fit a human character inside this cabin. Shift A is a shortcut for bringing in all of your objects. I'm going to come down over here to armature, right dead center. And inside of armature, I'm going to go to Rigify Meta Rigs. Now, Rigify will be a plugin. It comes with Blender, but you have to install it or to turn it on. When you go into human, right here, left click on the human, and then the human character comes in. There it is. So it kind of put it up a little high, so I can just take it, making sure that the move tool is selected on the left hand side is highlighted blue, and I'm going to bring it down right about there. And that tells me that, yeah, that's pretty darn close to human height. Bring it down a little bit further. If I can bring it toward, there we go. And that is close to my other character that I have in here. So this is a fast way of sizing up your environment to ensure that it's going to match your character. Your mountainscapes are huge back there. They're actually really big, so the character is really tiny in relationship to the mountains. But I pushed them way in the back there. And of course, Nikolai is going to show you how to actually texture these mountains inside of a Substance Painter that is owned by Adobe. Okay. All right. So now we want to bring in the glue, right? We've got if you notice back here, we got the HDRI image, which is the clouds. And I'm going to show you, where did I get this HDR image? If we go over to a site, this is going to be kind of fun. You're going to love this. Let's get out of my Amazon page and let's go over here to a site called Polyhaven. And Polyhaven is free 3D textures and assets. if I go up here to the top and click on assets or hover over assets, you've got HDRIs, that's what we're interested in, textures and models. So if I go over here and say HDRIs, look at what we've got here. We've got a lot of them in here, right? These are true panoramic images that when you wrap on a sphere, when they go in the end, when they connect in the end, is seamless. It's completely seamless. Right, and this is all free. Polyhaven.com. We also have some textures here. So under assets, we'll go away from HDR and go to textures. And what about that ground that we have? Maybe we'll do something different for the ground. In fact, why don't we grab something like this? I got a concrete block wall, maybe. I've got something here. It's a rocky terrain. So if I click on this, I can download this, right? And how do I want to download this? I can 4K, all the way up to 8K I can actually choose. Okay, I'm going to choose the zip file, all right, so that I can get the individual textures and colors. And I'm going to show you very quickly how to install those. I'm going to go click on download. All right, now I am going to go over to my lessons folder, which is inside my presentations, and of course my Comic-Con 2025 is right there. Inside that, I've got an images folder. I have textures here, but that's for my character, right? So I'm going to make a new folder. Command-Shift-N for new folder, and I'm going to call this one images. I will double-click that folder and place the zip file inside. I'm going to go inside the folder, and I need to unzip those files. So if I double click this, there they are. All the images are inside the textures folder. Let's just double click it and grab everything like this. Command C for copy, and go back into the root of the images folder and Command V for paste. There, okay? So if I go to view extra large, there are all my textured images. So these are designed for 3D. We've got our color, which is going to color the image. We got the displacement, which is going to give some surface textures and volume to the subject. We've got normal mapping, which also another way of adding textures to the image. So let's go apply all of these. Let's go back into Blender very quickly, and we're going to select the plane right there. We want that. We want that ground plane, and we can select it here, or we can click it right up here inside of the 3D outliner, 3D layer outliner, I like to call it. It's called plane, so I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it ground. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to texture it. I'm going to make sure, if you take a look at, there is no texture applied to it. The texture is usually also seen under the red globe on the right hand side, this vertical right side menu with the colorful icons. Go to the bottom, and you notice there's nothing in here because we haven't applied a texture yet. So we need to apply a material. You click new, material is applied. Now what we need to do is on the left hand side, I'm in what's called my nodal view, where I can look at this in terms of nodes. Hitting the N key for numerics brings these little panels to the right. Show them and makes them disappear. Here is a shader. This is the thing that's actually adding textures to the image. I wanted to add those photographic textures. We have a shortcut. And once again, you have to make sure Node Wrangler, N-O-D-E, Wrangler is active in the shortcut box. And in Blender, to access all of your add-ons, it's under Edit menu, Preferences, go to your add-ons right over here in the center. And then type in the chat box Node, N-O-D-E, and right there, mine is already checked and good to go. So I don't need to do anything. If yours is not showing up here, go over to the Get Extensions to get the Node Wrangler extension to add it on. Okay, mine is good to go, so we're going to go forward. Node Wrangler allows us to use shortcuts to make our job easy. So I want to add in several color images to make this plane work. So Control Shift T. Control Shift T says, okay, you're adding multiple images. There's your cabin tutorial. There's the images folder that I made. Double click it, and there are my images. I want to see the thumbnail view. So right up here in the top right hand corner, I'm going to click that little thumbnail view of it, and let's see if it's going to, and I've got some things showing up and some things not showing up. Let's see, let's take a look at this. I've got coastal sands and rocks here as another. Let me kind of click on that. There we go. That's what I want. These right here. There is my color image. There is my normal mapping for texture. And there is my roughness. I'm going to select those three and I'm going to add it to it. And there it is. Take a look. Let's go take a look. Come over here and select the ground. Period key on the keyboard to zoom in closer. There it is. Okay. So now if we go to camera view, I'm going to kind of pull this down. We can shift these windows around. Put the mouse on that little thick edge and just kind of drag it down. Go to camera view 0. There we go. Now it looks like a ground. So the last thing that we need is that atmospheric haze, right? Hit the 0 key on the numeric side of the keyboard again. That goes back to the scene view. And let's go get that atmospheric haze. Now, I'm going to go look for it over here in the outliner menu. And I believe I called it, I think it's still called Cube there. And I'm not seeing it highlighted in this scene. No big deal. Z key, go to solid view. And I'm going to click on the cube. And then I'm going to hit the period key here. And there it is. It's way over here. That's why I dragged it way off. This cube I turned into fog. All right. How did I do that? I'm going to bring it on over like so. And if we're going to take a look at the nodes for the object, this is a texture. I told it to become a volume scatter. So the BSDF normal color texturing shader, I deleted, and when I hit Shift A, I went to the search, and I searched for volume, VOL, and I look for volume scatter. That's going to be your surface texturing for creating a foggy atmosphere. Once you have this, I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to take this back to render mode so we can see the true effect of this. There it is. See, look at that. It's got a nice little fog in there. If I disconnect it from the volume, it goes black, right? If I connect it into the surface, it stays black. So it's important that this is always connected into the volume. Volume means turn any object into fog. There. Now it's fog. Now, let's pull this down. Let's go to camera view, 0. There it is. Look at the background. As things go further in the background, it fades into the fog. As things come closer to the camera, they're a lot more sharper and detailed. Okay, so there you have it. Remember, main subject. Then we've got background objects to help tell the story. The surrounding background, the light, the environment, which also helps sell the story. And then the absolute thing that really sells the story and pulls it all together or glues it all together is that atmospheric haze. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this. Let's go over to Nikolai and see how these elements can be textured to help better tell the story using some of Adobe's products.
Hey, praying to the screen recording gods. All right, so what Stephen was doing is there's a lot of things to, there's a lot of tools for you to tell the story. I'm going to be talking about just one sub-task of it, which is texturing. And for basically texturing and materials are one part of 3D workflow, but as you can see, there's more. There's compositions, there's atmospherics, camera work, animation, all sorts of stuff. So this is what we're going to be doing. It's that Stephen provided. We're just going to do this sort of atmospheric, in a different sense of the word, but sort of at least dramatic flyby of the asset, textured with our own textures of rocks, moss, ice, something, you know, stuff that can be found on the mountains. So before doing that, I'm going to give you just a short glimpse of what are we dealing with. Here is that we're going to go from Blender, which exports the geometry file. We're going to go from scratch into Substance Painter, and we need to put it in Unreal. Now, just a little bit of history. Transitioning between those introduces complexity. You have data compatibility issues. Integration tools are evolving, but still limited. And streamlining, whatever tool bag do you have, mastering the streamlining is the key to your efficiency. So since we are just talking about texturing and materials, I'm just going to give you a small introduction to materials. So what is material? Material is how a surface interacts with light. Essentially, it's a mathematical model that represents surface properties. And yeah, to make things even easier from mathematical perspective, introducing the rendering equation, which models the light transport in scenes. An equation is foundational to realistic image synthesis. If this diagram confuses you, let's make it clearer. Yeah, you can go to Wikipedia page. It's a nice read to get to on a Sunday afternoon. But what you've been seeing for the last 40 years in CGI is everybody approximating that particular equation in CGI. All of that has been an approximation. Initial models, like Dire Straits' Money for Nothing video, was just single color. Then we introduced textures, and we introduced more shading. As memory improved, as computational capabilities improved, now we can do a lot of stuff on the phone. But that brings us to photorealism. What it does mathematically from materials point of view is just having better and better approximation of that equation. The problem with that is that if you're doing these workflows, you have slightly different focuses, slightly different details of what you focus on. Like if you are Pixar, you're focused on a high quality rendering. For game engines, the interactivity is most while maintaining. Anyway, it's an artistic choice, and sometimes it might not even be real. Sometimes it can be just, you know, some sort of stylized thing. And long story short, fast forward 40 years later, we are converging on a realistic shading model, and that's what I am going to demonstrate to you of how to work it. And it has 5 different maps. Now, you don't want to be thinking about them as maps. Most of these maps that I just talked about, I just listed, they're not even colors, they're just values describing material properties, but we don't want to think about that. We want to think about just using shape and the mood of style of 3D scene. You want to be creative. We don't want to be thinking about mathematics of it. So enter the Adobe Substance tools. How much time do we have? Yeah, good, we're on time. So we've got Painter, Designer, Sampler. Sampler is good for creating 3D models. Designer is good for advanced creation of 3D models. Painter is what's used for texturing. And so let's, and another thing that Substance gives to you is the Substance Material Collection. Now, the Substance Material Collection is the fact that you don't have to make a material, you can just search for it. We have tens of thousands of materials available to you for free with your Creative Cloud subscription. All you have to do is to go to this URL, substance3d.adobe.com/assets. You can find a lot of materials there. So whatever I'm going to tell you, I'm just not going to be describing creation of materials, I'm going to just be describing application. Chances are whatever materials you want, it's there inside this collection. Fire up the Painter, And for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to be working in 2K by 2K resolution, and I'm going to be using a lower poly version of the rock of the mountains that Stephen gave to me. So let's go ahead and select it. Everything else should be by default. And now, here is